You're what? Yes, I'm going to Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within. Really? Yes, I am. What? Why? So there's some of the reactions that I encountered when I told people I was going to the 4-day Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within. Shock, confusion, disbelief. And that's understandable because everyone has a everyone who's heard of Tony Robbins probably has a preconceived idea about what he's about or what his seminars are about. So in this video, I want to share with you my experience of Unleash the Power Within that was run here in Sydney this year. Now, Unleash the Power Within is a 4-day event run by Tony Robbins and Joseph McLennan. And there were over 6,000 people from 26 countries. Everyone from farmers to entrepreneurs to parents taking their kids to people with depression to spiritual types to corporate professionals. Everyone, all walks of life. But everyone was there for the same reason. Everyone wanted to learn something about themselves so that they could improve their life in one way or another. Now, have you ever dreamed about doing something or achieving something that after you achieve it or in a year or 5 years, you'd be so proud and you'd feel awesome about it, but you stopped yourself. For one reason or another, you stopped yourself. Now, one of the very first questions, or the first 3 questions that Tony puts forward and answers in the seminar are: 1, what stops us from moving forward? 2, what determines the quality of our life? And 3, why do we do what we do? Why do people do what we do? Now, I don't know about you, but I'm fascinated by psychology and human behavior. So just understanding the answers to these 3 questions, which are simple answers, and they're just such logical things. But understanding just those answers can change a person's life. Yet we covered that in the first couple of hours. Now, while the content is amazing because it's been developed Tony's been doing this stuff for over 4 decades now. So he's been working with and dealing with people from all walks of life and learning things about them. So his content has been developed and improved upon in all that time. But what makes his seminars really impressive are the way they're run. Now let me pause there and share with you a couple of concepts, 1 or 2 of Tony's concepts that will better help me explain why the running of the seminar is so important. Tony shares that when we make a decision, it happens in an instant. Getting to that point where we're ready to make that decision can sometimes take a long, long time, but the decision itself happens in an instant. So when we're in a better state or a peak state, then we make better decisions and we control what state we're in. If we change a part or a couple of parts of what Tony labels the triad, then we're in the driver's seat to make better decisions in our life. So what's your triad? Well, number 1, your physiology. This is a funky word for how your body works basically. So if you're slumped and looking down and breathing shallow and dehydrated and inactive, like so many of people are when they're at home watching TV every afternoon, do you think that sort of physiology is going to put you in the driver's seat of making great decisions and being motivated and having wanting to kick some goals? Or do you think that's going to slow you down and make you a bit lazy? I'm sure you can imagine. Now the second part is focus. So when someone is in front of you and they're saying you can't or you shouldn't or you couldn't, do you focus on that, or do you focus on the fact that you have it within you? You have a world of opportunity in front of you. You have mentors and you have leaders that you can learn from to advance yourself. What do you focus on? And the third part of the triad is language and meaning. Now, say for example, someone's in front of you and someone and they tell you can't do something or you shouldn't do something or you shouldn't try for whatever reason. And it's something that you want to do. They were in your focus. You couldn't help that at that instant they were in your focus. In the future they probably won't be, but at that point they were. Now, what meaning do you give that to yourself? Do you kind of succumb to their opinion? Because that's all it was. It was just their opinion. Do you succumb to that and sort of say, yeah, you know what, they're probably right? Or do you use it as fuel? Do you use it as fuel for the fire to achieve something? You know, what sort of language, what sort of self-talk do you give yourself then? Do you give it the, yeah, you know, should probably just listen to them and not try? Or do you think to yourself and say to yourself in your mind, you know what, I can do it, and I'm gonna do it just to prove that person wrong. In fact, I'm gonna add that person to the list of people who don't think I can do it, just so I can prove them all wrong. See how much more positive and inspiring that kind of self-talk language can be? Now, Tony and Joseph used the triad and got us to use the triad, often unbeknownst to us, and many times throughout the seminar, to keep us focused, to keep us paying attention, so that we were in a peak state whenever we needed to make some decisions. It was a seriously high energy event. Frequently they would crank the music out and get people up and dancing and fist pumping and high-fiving and hugging it out and just having an awesome time, getting us into a peak state instantly. And Tony would, that was just a physiological change, and we'd do it often so that we stayed in this high energy state the whole time, so that when it came time to make a decision, you know, we're ready for it. Tony would also say, if you understand me, or if you agree, say I. And just that small physiological change, taking a breath, saying I, raising your hand, that instantly gets your focus and gets your attention back on what they're trying to get across to us, the messages they're trying to get across to us. Can you imagine trying to keep the attention of a room of 6,000 people on you, you know, consistently while you're going through all this amazing information? They use the triad so well to keep us on the edge of our seat the whole time. Now, in terms of that third part of the triad, the language, they're able to, they kept it simple and relatable, so that, you know, at that time when 6,000 people were standing there and the lights were dimmed down and people started delving deep into their limiting beliefs, you know, the things that have been holding them back for so long, they used this language that really drew the emotions from us. And at one point, you know, there was 6,000 people up there in this dark place. At least half the room was crying, like properly bawling. I was listening out, and you could hear people in different parts, in all sorts of states. But then through the next half hour and a half, I don't know how long it went for, they used the language to build us up and crush those limiting beliefs and bring on the new beliefs that we would carry forward with us from that point forward. And oh man, after that, it was mayhem. It was the biggest rave party I've ever been to. It was such a profound experience. Words can't express it. So who is Tony Robbins? Well, from everything I've heard and seen and understand about him, he is a man like no other. First of all, he's 6'7", he's a big guy, you know, sure, there's other 6'7" people, but he has a presence to him. When he's walking around, he just has such a presence to him. Now, more than anyone I know, he has worked on his psychology, and you know, he says he's even read 600 or 700 books in about 7 years on his quest for self-education. He hasn't just developed into the person that he is today. He has been very considered in creating and sculpting the person and the mind and the health and the body that he has formed for himself today. He actually tells quite an interesting story about a date that he had with his wife, Sage. It was one of their first dates, and they were out to dinner, and at the end of the meal, Sage ordered a chocolate sundae. And you know, Tony is so strict with his health and his eating habits and everything in his life basically, that he was having this internal meltdown. He was like, oh my God, this girl that is amazing and perfect in every way, she's eating a chocolate sundae, I can't deal with this. And, you know, he kind of expressed that a little bit, and Sage just said to him in the very cool, relaxed way, something like, you know, just chill out, Tony, you know, you got to have balance in life. And it actually broke one of Tony's beliefs, and it changed him as a person. So now he admits that from time to time he eats a bit of ice cream with his wife because he enjoys doing that. Now, in terms of his eternal quest for improving his psychology, he claims to have read earlier on about 600 or 700 books in 7 years in his quest for self-education. It seems like whenever he gets an interest in something, whether it's finances or health or psychology or human behavior or whatever it is, he does not leave a stone unturned in his research. And you can tell that he really lives by the standards and by the teachings that he gives to other people. They are a part of his mantra and the way that he runs his life. Not just teach it to someone else and hope they do it, but that is the way he runs his life. And I think that's really admirable. So you can probably tell by now that I have a lot of time for both the person and the entity that is Tony Robbins. And I say that because he is a businessman. He's got several businesses, something like 8 businesses or something. So he is a money-making machine, which, you know, through the seminar there was quite a bit of upselling, and that was a little bit annoying, but you know what, at the time you don't really care. Regardless, all in all, Tony, through his audio programs, his books, his seminars, his coaching, him and his team and his various businesses have changed the lives of millions of people for the positive, in my opinion, myself included. You hear so many stories about someone being handed a Tony Robbins book when they're down in the dumps and their life has been so bad, and it changes them. You know, they read it, they embrace the concepts, they start practicing things, and they turn their life around. And I think that is magic, because there's not that many people who have had as big of an impact as him on this planet, if anyone. So I highly, highly recommend Unleash the Power Within as a first starting point, as a first seminar of his to go to. I think it's a really good starting point. I will definitely be going back to Unleash the Power Within next year, and I'm going to take my wife along with me who's keen to go. But until then, I'm going to take Tony's advice, because things like our motivation and our health and our relationships and all those parts of our life, you don't just go to a seminar once and hope that carries through for the rest of the year. You need to keep working on yourself all the time. We need to keep pushing and striving to improve ourselves and to grow, because if you're not growing, you're dying. So I hope you got something out of that review. If so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or like and comment on Facebook or wherever you're watching this. Have an awesome day. Take care. Bye.